my name is Rochelle, and in this series, we are going to talk about the Minecraft Education Edition Esports, which is happening this coming March. But before that, let's talk about what esports is. So, when we hear the word esports, basically the first thing that comes our mind are usually online games such as Fortnite, League of Legends, Defense of the Ancients, and so on. But did you know that esports is not just a usual online games that our kids play almost every day? Now let's talk about what esports is. While many of the definitions relate to competitive, organized, or professional play, few give consideration to one of the most important dimensions of esports: the community of spectators who watch live tournaments in arenas or who live streams competition from all over the world. This community aspects of esport is a vibrant, interactive, and participative space which is driving the growth of esports as an industry, as entertainment, and even as a route to a college education and a potential career pathway. So, what do esports look like practice? In addition to the professional player who are or who competes against each other, a fundamental component of esports culture is the huge number of spectators who attend tournaments in person, who access the competitions by streaming them online through platforms such as Mixer, Twitch, and YouTube, etc. In 2018, the League of Legends Esports World Championship had audience viewing figures comparable with the 2008 Super Bowl. Imagine that. It is projected by 2021 or 2021, esports audience will reach 300 million worldwide in the United States, and it will have more viewers than all other professional sports league except perhaps NFL as shown in the figure. As such, esports has now become a global industry estimated to grow to 1.5 billion by 2020 by international competitions, generous monetary prizes, and the potential of sponsorship. As well as being viewed as a valid career pathway with opportunities for university scholarship and a range of career options within the growing esports entertainment industry itself. Now, where did it all begin? Since then, online gaming has become an integral and accepted part of everyday culture in Korea, with esports athletes are often given celebrity status. Esports is now embedded within mainstream culture across much of Asia, with organized leagues of games such as StarCraft and Lineage, typically broadcast on primetime television in much the same way traditional sports matches in other countries. The growth of esports in the US and Europe is now beginning to excel, with competitive gaming becoming a mainstream activity, attracting millions of spectators to regional and international events organized by large professional organizations like the World Cyber Game or WCG, Electronic Sports World Cup or ESWC, and Cyber Athlete Professional League or CTL. Now, where is esports going? In turn, educators in high schools are considering whether there is a place for esports in schools, either as parts of college preparatory classes, or whether there may be other educational benefits from this growing field. Much of the discussion about esports legitimacy as a leisure and entertainment activity, and even as a school subject, revolve around disagreements about whether it should actually be considered a sport, since traditional sports have a well respected place as part of cultural activities such as Olympics. Is esport a game or a sport? No, what is sport? According to the Entertainment Software Association in 2017, video games have become one of the most popular recreational activities, with as many adults as children playing for the entertainment. This growth in video game popularity have seen esports become an accepted form of sport entertainment across the world. Yet, there is strong debate in sports industry about its legitimacy as a sport, and coincidentally, some questions from educators about where it might fit in school curricula. There are differing options on what exactly constitutes a sport. Research exploring the connection between esports and sport present a set of criteria outlining what constitutes a sport based on a review of work undertaken by a number of different researches. And the five criteria I identified are physical activity, recreation, competitive elements, organizational structure, and social acceptance of sports, for example, by the media or sports agencies. In addition to this, and in accordance with the criteria set out by Hallman and Gale in 2018, esports also have media and sponsorship support with large audiences streaming competitions throughout platforms such as Mixer, Twix, and YouTube. With esports developing a professional structure for esports similar to traditional sports, including tournaments, leagues, fans, teams, team owner, player contracts, and sponsors, an emerging prize and pay structure, scholars argue that there are undoubted parallel between traditional sports competitions and esports. From an educational point of view, considering esports only from the perspective of sports may be too narrow in terms of its inherent value as a tool for teaching and learning. Educators may be interested in exploration of esports that consider the underlying role of play in all games. Now, is esports a legitimate sport? It would seem that to some degree, esports may be battling the same image problems that video games have, with gaming culture being characterized as isolating, antisocial, and a lazy pastime as the mass media. Whether esports gain worldwide recognition as a sport may determine the extent to which it becomes accepted as a legitimate activity for players or indeed students to participate in. However, the question of whether esports is a legitimate classroom activity with solid educational functions or foundations is a different matter explored in depth in section. Number three, esports culture. The esports revolution. There are a number of different games that are used to practice and play esports. In 2019, the most popular titles were Fortnite, Defense of the Ancient 2, and Counter-Strikes, with between 200 and almost 700 tournaments hosted for these games. However, there are also different types of games, and this is particularly interesting from an educational perspective because different types of games elicit different forms of gameplay and requires player to develop different skill set. Additionally, it is important to understand the differences between these games because some will be more appropriate for a school esport team than others. Now, who is involved in esports? While players and teams are found at the very center of this ecosystem, the authors argue that it is actually the wider community, their practices, engagement, and even their products are created and drive the entire esports engine. The researchers go on to make the case that make knowledge and skills learned as part of esports curriculum connected with STEM, college preparatory skills, and career technical education standards in US schools. In addition to the players and community dimension, the ecosystem also contains professional and commercial components, including publishers, business managers, marketing experts, physical therapists, and professional representing brands and platforms. In esports, we all need the strategies, the organizers, the content creator, the entrepreneurs, and um, as this industry continues to grow, it is this professional aspect that is becoming increasingly recognized, attracting investors, media attentions, and with it reaching audiences that may be considered mainstreams by the public. Types of games. There are a number of different games that are used to practice and play esports, such as Fortnite, Dota 2, Counter Strike, Player Unknown's Battlegrounds, Overwatch, League of Legends, Call of Duty, and many more. However, as the esports industry continues to explode, the emergence of new titles sees games that blends in action with strategy and role playing, making it increasingly difficult for educators to clarify these games by type alone. For example, League of Legends, which is typified as a real-time strategy game, player assume the role of a character or an avatar with unique strength and abilities. Here are some of the strategy in the game occurs when teams have to coordinate different characters, strengthen as part of their plan, merging the strategy and role-playing genres. For simplicity, in the section below, we review the characteristics of each of the four main types of video games. Player versus player, also known as PvP, are games where one player competes against another or several or other. A distinction is made here that is kind of face off between one or more human players as opposed to a human player battling against the computer. In days gone by, you may have extended to see this kind of action on a console game much as Mario Kart, where one player races against another around a racetrack, or in Street Fighter when one player participates in open combat against another opponent. However, the genres moved with the times and PvP is found in both fighting games and sports games. Real time strategy or RTS. In a real time strategy game, players do not take turns to play. Instead, play occurs continuously as players compete against each other to achieve the game's objective. In RTS games, generally, each player is positioned on a map with limited resources, and the objective is to strategize the best way to secure their resources, build their forces, and defend their territory. As players begin to use up the world's resources, the game requires them to take over their opponent's base to secure enough resources for their own growing empire. Resource gathering is a main feature here, but so is resources use, and player must think tactically to overcome their opponents and win the game. Multiplayer Online Battle Arena or MOBA. In recent years, interest in RTS games has waned, partly because for spectators, these games are not as fast paced as other types of games. The multiplayer online battle arena or MOBA genre is offering both players and spectators the tactical challenges of RTS, but with the pace of excitement of an action video game. In MOBA, individual players must work as a team to gather resources and successfully destroy the opposing team's base or structure. Typically, a player will assume the identify of an avatar or character with specific abilities in game, and therefore a huge part of tactically plays in this kind of game depends on the team deciding when, where, and how to use the different players' strength to help their quest. First person shooter or FPS. In a first person shooter, the player views the world through the eyes of their character. In this sense, often the player won't see their character's body, but they can usually see objects they are carrying, such as weapons, maps, etc. An indicator of their status in the form of health points, lives, armor, communication, and etc. This status enables the player to make strategies, decision in game about which action to take or which avenues to pursue in meeting the overall objectives of the game. As the name suggested, FPS, these games are typically set in battlefields or battle arenas with the objective of killing the other team. Now, which of these titles might be applicable in the classroom? Consideration of game ratings, researching in games before purchasing them is an essential first step for educators. This, combined with a thorough consideration of your curriculum learning objectives and your school's ethos and values, will set a clear benchmark for games that are suitable for your educational setting. Types of player. Some of esports' finest players have reached celebrity status in the gaming community and beyond, often known first and foremost by their game tag. These professional level players are generally, but not always, skilled at playing one particular type of game and are often scouted by the top teams. For example, Lee Sang-yuk, aka Faker, is said to be the world's finest League of Legends player, having won the World Championship 3 times. Beginning his career at the age of 17, he is believed to have won more than over $1.2 million in prize money and has a place on the Korean national team. This story is not usual in esports, and as the industry begins to establish itself firmly with sponsorship and media supports, schools, colleges, and the wider esports industry are seeing valid career pathways emerge. Who are esports players? A lot of research has been conducted on the players themselves. It is important for a game designer to understand what makes a player want to play. And from this single consideration has come the realization that not all players are alike. Early research on the theory of games suggested that this want was tied to a player's strategic consideration of cost benefit, or how can I maximize my minimal playoff while minimizing the maximal playoff of the other players. The data gathered was based on a specific game genre, MMORPG, and while this early game theory was groundbreaking, it failed to take into action what is known as a fuzzy human dimension that arises from understanding how game influence emotion and cognition, particularly factors such as motivation, satisfaction, and pleasure. Number 4, esports as organized play. Leagues and tournament. Over the past decade, the number of esports leagues and tournaments has grown exponentially, reflecting its growing acceptance in mainstream culture. This growth in esports events has been supported by the establishment of professional esports bodies, such as the International Esports Federation in South Korea, representing over 50 members nations, including the United States, Sweden, China, Russia, and Germany. In 2017, almost 4,000 esports tournaments took place, with total prize money reaching $110.6 million. This figure presents information on professional tournaments that took place in 2019. Not listed here, but the particular significance is the World Cyber Games, comparable to the Olympic Games, in that it attracts competitors from over 70 countries and more than a million participants for entry into the national preliminary rounds. Who organize esports events? International events such as the World Cyber Game or WCG attract such huge numbers of participants and spectators that corporate sponsorship media naturally follows, generating even larger audience and larger prizes, helping to further embed esports as an increasingly accepted culture activity. It is this foundation as a cultural activity, supported by mainstream media and sponsored by global brands, that has laid the groundwork for the establishment of the institutionalized governance of esports, giving rise to an increase in numbers of professional leagues, as well as the number of regulatory organizations representing esports throughout the world, including the Cyber Athlete Professional or Athlete the Cyber Athlete Professional Leagues in the US, Korean Esports Association in South Korea, and the Electronic Sports League in Europe. Governance of esports. At the time of writing, there is no single international governing body for esports. Currently, each esports is individually governed by a game publisher, for example, League of Legends by Riot Games, Rocket League by Psychonix, because of the fast-paced growth of the industry, and also because the participants are most likely to be young adolescents from around the world, there is a great need of international regulation, rule setting, ethical guidance, and governance. A global sports organization for all. While these organizations give some regulatory structure to the sports industry, some criticize the lack of independence and objectivity created by having publishers and other insider in positions of authority, with a sense of these organizations may make decisions best suited for their business rather than for the profession, player, or the industry at large. Furthermore, none of these organizations have yet established any real enforcement mechanism necessary to enforce rule and regulations in the esports industry. Recommendations for global governing body to unify governance and regulation of esports across all games and publisher with independent rule setting, metrics, and reporting. Currently, here are the organizations who supports esports events. First is the International Esports Federation. Founded in 2008, the International Esports Federation aims to promote standardization in esports, to provide esports-oriented human resource training, and to continually promote esports and its values. Next is the World Esports Association, or WESA. The World Esports Association was founded in 2016 by ESL, the world's largest esports company, and eight multi-gaming organization. And lastly, the National and Regional Esports Federation. A number of esports organizations exist at the national and regional scales. At the regional scales, organizations like the Asian Electronic Sports Federation, or AESF, are governing body of 45 members or member countries, including South Korea, China, and Singapore. At the national level, organizations like the United States Esports Federation and other are the official governing body for professional esports in the USA and are member of international esports body such as International Esports Federation. Now, those are the facts about esports, and we'll be talking about esports as a game-based learning next. Thank you for your time and have a great day.